affordability challenges are ones that we can tackle. And we can do that by building more housing, by ensuring that we are lowering costs and really delivering on lower prices. Many cities and states are taking incredibly bold actions, reforming zoning and land use rules, expediting the permitting process, really investing in housing, public and private housing, and breaking down barriers around housing production. But the truth is that these actions are taking place against the backdrop of a Trump administration that is actually raising the cost of housing. I know that's surprising, but it is actually true. The Trump administration's tariff policies are raising costs by making it harder and more expensive to build. It's harder to import, it's more costly to import, and that means that construction materials are more expensive and buying a home is more expensive. Adding $17,500 in costs for every new home on average. At a time where we're trying to lower costs, the fact that the administration is raising those costs is something that tells you really where they stand. So obviously we have a lot more to do, and that's why we're so incredibly excited. The Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats are fighting to lower costs for everyone across a range of issues, but starting with housing, the largest expense in most people's budgets. The leader has worked on affordability for decades. He's a longtime advocate for the low-income housing tax credit, which has financed nearly 4 million homes since its inception. And he's been focused on rental assistance and ensuring that everyone can access a home. I worked with him when I was the legislative director for another senator, and he was focused directly on ensuring that working class and middle class families can afford to live, can afford rents. During COVID, Leader Schumer passed into law the largest investment in rental relief in history through the American Rescue Plan, helping millions of renters escape eviction and more than 400,000 households avoid foreclosure. That's an agenda that matters. So we're so excited that he is here today. He is working with Senator Warren to pass the first bipartisan housing legislation, the Road to Housing Act, in well over a decade. He is a tireless champion on these issues, and we are excited that he is outlining the first of many affordability agenda items that Senate Democrats are going to work on this year, because they recognize that the real challenge, there's, again, a lot of noise, a lot of issues, but fundamentally, people's anxiety is that they just can't keep up with the cost of living. And they are looking for leaders who understand that. And we're so grateful that Senator Schumer is a leader they can look to on this issue. Senator?
Well, good morning, everybody, and it is really great to be here. I want to thank Neera and Cap for hosting this important, whoops, got my little cards here. Yep. That's my schedule. I wouldn't know where to go the rest of the day. I want to thank Neera and Cap for hosting this great, important policy summit on the affordability crisis Americans face, focusing on housing. Cap has been just a haven for thoughtful, innovative solutions for our nation's most difficult problems throughout the years I've been in the Senate. When there's a sticky, difficult problem, Cap is one of the first places I always call, and Neera has had great leadership both on and off the Hill. She understands how the legislative process works. She understands policy to a degree that very few others do. And so, and Cap has been instrumental in helping shape the housing policy agenda we're rolling out today. I also want to thank my colleagues who are going to participate later in the program, both of whom have been very active in housing, and those are Senator Schatz and Senator Duckworth, who you'll hear from later, and Jared Bernstein, and today's panel of experts. Thank you. Jim Parrott from the Urban Institute, Bharat Ramamurthy, who has been a true leader. I've known him for years working on policy issues. David Gonzalez Rice with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and Sean McGarvey, the president of the building trades, a great leader. He is always there, always fighting for working people and also fighting for the good of the American people. He makes sure that we have working Americans get better pay, better benefits, and better representation in the workplace. So thank you all for being on the panel. I know everyone here looks forward to hearing from you. So, we meet right now at a moment of crisis for the American spirit. Across the country, tens of millions of families, people living paycheck to paycheck, people clinging on to the middle class are asking them the same question from one end of the country to the other. Is America still a land of opportunity? Does the promise of this country still deliver for me and my family? And for too many Americans, the answer has become no. And the reason is the cost of living is far too high. And under Donald Trump, this crisis has gone from bad to worse. Trump's tariffs have raised costs for automobiles, clothing, furniture, even coffee and groceries. His Secretary of Agriculture says, just spend less. It can cost around $3, the Secretary said, for a meal, for a piece of chicken, a piece of broccoli, a corn tortilla, and one other thing. These people are not serious. They almost sound like they never had to feed a family. They never had to go to a supermarket. It's just incredible. Trump's big, beautiful bill, meanwhile, raised health care costs, booted millions off insurance, and on January 1st, we saw tens of millions of Americans saw their premiums double on average because Donald Trump and Republicans let the ACA premium tax credits expire despite all of our efforts. I'm sure last night there were tens of millions of American families sitting at the dinner table saying, how are we going to pay these bills? Do I pay my whole health care bill and stop saving for my retirement? Do I buy the new car or cut back on groceries? These are the kinds of questions that vex average families more than just about anything else. If you can't provide a decent life for yourself and your family, you don't think things are very good. So this is just a crisis that has just become unmanageable for too many families. Working Americans are anxious, they're worried sick, and then they're left wondering, who the hell is fighting for me with all of these problems? Well, as we begin 2026, Senate Democrats have a message for the country. We hear you. We hear you loud and clear, and we're getting to work. Every day, every week, every month this year, Democrats will put costs front and center in our agenda. It will be our agenda now and on throughout 2026. This spring and over the next few months and through 2026, Democrats will show precisely how a Senate Democratic majority will lower costs for everyday expenses. Right. We'll go issue by issue, spending weeks at a time, deliberately in depth, rolling out a battle plan for each front of the war of high costs. No matter where you live in America, no matter where you live, if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or not political at all, we know that you should know we are hearing you. In a few weeks, we'll present a plan to the American people for how to lower their grocery costs. A few weeks later, we'll unveil a vision on how to lower electricity and energy costs. We'll present a plan that'll help parents afford child care and help families afford health care. Lowering costs will be our North Star, now and for all of 2026. And when Senate Democrats win the majority, the first thing we're going to do is get to work to enact these policies to lower the cost of living. Today, we begin this effort by focusing on housing. No matter where you live in America, no matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an Independent, everyone worries about cost, and everyone worries about housing affordability. Owning a home means building wealth, building a future. It's one of the most important parts of the American dream, if not the most important. Young families, when they own a home and pay that mortgage each month, they know they're building equity, they're building a future, they have something they can leave for their children. But as we all know, over the last few decades, the American dream of owning a home has become more of a mirage. It was a very realizable dream years ago. And most people, even at the lower income levels, thought, I can afford a home. They don't think so anymore. And that's devastating to them. The median price of a home, Neera pointed some of these out in her good intro, has increased by 55% since COVID. Rent is up by a third. And as Neera mentioned, I think of this all the time. The average first-time home buyer is 40 years old. 40 years old before you can buy a home. That's a record high. That's a devastating statistic that should shake up everyone in a position of power at the federal, state, or local levels. The statistic is just so confounding and deeply troubling. And when the rent or the mortgage is too high, you can't afford much else. It squeezes every other aspect of your life. If you can reduce the cost of your housing, then on the converse, you have room to afford many things you need daily. And right now, America is short millions of housing units, driving up costs everywhere. Now, this crisis did not happen overnight. It wasn't always this way. Nearly a century ago, FDR instituted the nation's first ever laws to help Americans afford housing. And he declared, FDR did, quote, the right of every family is to a decent home. The GI Bill after World War II made low-interest loans available to millions and millions of Americans, of American veterans. The Great Society saw the creation of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Section 8 vouchers brought rental assistance to millions of low-income families. Fair housing laws ensured affordable housing while fighting discrimination. The history is clear, my friends. When the federal government leads on housing policy, Americans are better off. But we know this began to change in the 1980s. The Reagan administration shifted its focus from serving working Americans to helping business interests increase their bottom lines. The federal government's ambitious housing policy ossified and shrunk. Now, I want to be very clear that both parties ignored the decades-long housing crisis, a truth we Democrats must confront and own. But under Donald Trump, our housing crisis and the affordability crisis in general has reached a boiling point. Trump tried to cut tens of billions of dollars to help people with rental assistance, help prevent homelessness, help enforce fair housing, help build affordable housing. He just cut and cut and cut with, in my view, little even thought as to the consequences. He raised his tariffs have raised housing construction costs, as Neera mentioned, by $17,500 a home. $17,500, an increase in the cost of your home because of Donald Trump's tariffs. And now he's launching a criminal investigation against the chair of the Federal Reserve, a brazen attempt to cannibalize the Fed's independence. The decision will cause chaos in the housing markets, and that increases costs, because when there's chaos and politicization at the Fed, interest rates are more likely to go higher and stay higher. The lenders hold on tight and they say, we better not take any risks. We better pad our balance sheets with higher costs because we don't know what's going to come next. Then he's launching a criminal investigation, Trump is, against the chair of the Federal Reserve, a brazen attempt to cannibalize the Fed's independence. This decision could cause chaos in the housing markets as well. He's kneecapped the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau as well. That protects against predatory corporate behavior and targets renters and home buyers. He's made this absurd proposal of a 50-year mortgage, which is just inane and unserious. The minute he came out with it, just sort of popped into his head, as lots of very bad things do. But unlike many other people, there's no filter. And out it comes, with deadly consequences in many cases. But anyway, it was ridiculed immediately by the left, by the right, by the center. Here's another one that just kills me. They've been trying this for years, but he's giving it a renewed push: the privatization of Fannie and Freddie. It's so obvious that'll raise costs for working families if you privatize Fannie and Freddie. But they're proposing it. Ironically, the only decent idea Donald Trump has floated recently on housing is one he stole from Democrats, calling for an end to institutional investors gobbling up homes and crowding out individual families. Democrats think we should pursue this idea, and in fact, we tried to get it done last year. We had an amendment to the reconciliation bill, which we all voted for, and they all voted against. And this is Donald Trump's Achilles heel. Even when he tries to do something good, he tries to sound like a populist, but in reality, he's a posturer. He never does anything to follow through. Pops out of his mouth one day, and then he's on something else the next day. Trump, if you care about preventing these institutional inventors from gobbling up homes, get the Republican senators and the Republican House members to join us in voting for it. Don't just posture. He thinks when he throws out these populist-sounding things, he can persuade people he's on their side. But he never lifts a finger or picks up a phone to get the Republicans to Congress to act. Here's a case in point, a recent one. House Republicans blocked progress on real and necessary housing legislation, namely the Road to Housing Act, which Elizabeth Warren's worked so hard on and includes so many good bills that Senate Democrats have fought for over the years. But even though it passed bipartisan in the Senate, Donald Trump didn't lift a finger to stop House Republicans from axing the road to housing. Well, the American people have had enough. What the American people want isn't rocket science. They simply want lower costs, an ability to live a decent life and feel positive about the future. The American people, simply put, want opportunity. And Democrats believe that when it comes to creating opportunity, opportunity must start at home. So that's why I'm calling our housing agenda Opportunity Starts at Home. When Donald Trump spends billions in taxpayer dollars on foreign wars, Democrats will focus on investing here at home and lower costs for the American people here at home. And what does that mean practically when it comes to housing? A Democratic majority will tackle the housing affordability crisis by working to do these things: to reduce rent, to boost home ownership, to stop predatory corporations, to supercharge construction, and to provide housing security for all Americans. This is how we create opportunity. This is how we'll lower housing costs for the American people. So let me go a little bit through each. Rental relief. The Democratic majority will fight to deliver real, robust rental relief for every tenant in need. Because when it comes to lowering costs, rental relief is one of the best short-term fixes on the table. Republicans aren't even talking about rental relief at all. But we Democrats actually delivered on rental relief in the past, as Neera mentioned. When I was majority leader in the depths of the COVID crisis, Democrats entered into the law robust expansion for rental assistance and emergency housing vouchers. We saved millions from eviction. We gave people the space and means to find their footing. And there's still that crisis going on, not all at once because of COVID, but every day in every part of America, and the same types of relief are needed. Democrats have also fought long and hard to expand Section 8 vouchers to reduce rental costs, and will focus on expanding necessary rental relief to even more Americans who need help with the crushing cost of rent. Second, boosting home ownership. Democrats will expand the promise of home ownership for every American looking to buy a home. Will help with down payment assistance, critical for the first-time and first-generation buyers. Will lower the cost of mortgage insurance. I don't know why that hasn't been done. So essential in these days when down payment costs so much. Will expand access to portable and assumable mortgages as well. They should be portable, they should be assumable, much more easily than now. Will reform homeowners insurance, which is now at a crisis level and so important for people who can't afford that down payment. And that's especially true on our coasts and in communities prone to wildfires. Homeowners insurance is vital, and the cost is going through the roof so that people can't sell their homes, people can't buy their homes. It's so important to reform. Now, these are just some of the ideas on the table that a Democratic majority will push to make home ownership easier, less expensive, more sustainable. Excuse me. Third, predatory companies. Democrats will hit back at predatory institutions that are guilty of raising prices, abusing tenants, shutting millions of working and middle-class families out of the housing market. Even though some of our Republicans don't get it, corporations are not people, and they shouldn't be allowed to gobble up entire neighborhoods so easily and turn them into profit machines. A Democratic majority would work to put a stop on this poisonous trend. As I said, even Donald Trump says he likes this idea. Too bad he'll never get it done. The Republicans in the House and Senate will not do it. We have to get the majority to do these things. Democrats will also crack down on companies that artificially raise prices by using price-fixing algorithms to help landlords collude with each other and figure out how they can squeeze the maximum rent out of each individual in each individual case. It's using technology for a very bad purpose. And one of my favorites, which I've delivered on for years, I used to do Sunday press conferences on this. It's one of my favorite policies. It's ending junk fees. In this case, rental junk fees that prey upon families already struggling to keep up with the rent. Fourth, build more housing. We have to build more housing, plain and simple, no ands, ifs, or buts. A Democratic majority will launch a national effort, a nationwide mission to build housing to reduce costs in every state, every community, every neighborhood in need. We'll work with anyone, Democrats, Republicans, federal, state, local leaders, labor leaders, developers, faith leaders, anyone to get it done. And a good start, again, is for the Republican House to pass the Road to Housing Act. The Senate's done its job, thanks to the leadership of Elizabeth Warren. And now the House and Donald Trump must do theirs and get the road to housing over the finish line. But we have to do more. Elizabeth and everyone else says that's just the first step. There's a lot more that must be done. We must cut unnecessary red tape, and encourage local zoning reform by providing incentives and disincentives, carrots and sticks, for localities to reform outdated rules, to wipe away rules that get in the way of building housing. Senator Schatz has been a great leader on this, and we'll have more to say about it. We have so many talented people in our caucus, and my job is to take those ideas and blend them and weave them into one strong program that we can all support. And Schatz has been great on this issue. We'll also expand the Housing Trust Fund to create new middle-class and create a new middle-class housing emergency fund to invest in public housing. Senators Warren and Warnock are working on this already. And we'll work to get Fannie and Freddie to provide a national secondary market for construction loans to finance multifamily housing. Making construction loans cheaper makes housing more available and more affordable to many. I also have legislation I'm working on with Senator Duckworth to empower HUD to invoke the DPA, the Defense Production Act, guaranteeing the purchase of housing materials in short supply and scaling production of modular and manufactured housing. This is something Senator Slotkin has also called for. But again, the DPA When there was a national emergency, a war, we used the DPA. We have a national emergency in housing. Use the same thing, the same basic policy tool. We also want to create a new ARPA home program, which will provide new thinking and new innovation to bring housing costs down. DARPA did it for defense. We can do it for housing with a housing ARPA. So this is just one of the many pieces of legislation we've worked on, and we benefited from CAP's knowledge and insight because they helped create these ideas. Separately, we're also going to work to expand something that's been something I've long championed, even when I was in the House, and that is the low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC. Maria Cantwell's done great work on this as well, and we know this works. So now, as we talk about increasing construction, every single one of us must be clear about something else that's important. Democrats will reject the false choice between building more housing and paying our construction workers a decent wage. We will not abandon organized labor like Donald Trump. We will empower them by ensuring they receive good pay, safety on the job, and with legislation to train a new generation of trades workers to build America, including housing. Finally, housing security for all. We must ensure financial security and opportunity for all communities. That means we need some targeted investments to end homelessness, to provide quality housing for veterans and for seniors, to rebuild communities that have been left behind, and we will enforce fair housing laws to deliver fair and affordable housing to all Americans. Now, these are just some of the things that Democrats will push to lower housing costs for the American people. As you can see, we've thought this through. We have a broad and comprehensive program that can really work. So, this is what our Opportunity Starts at Home agenda looks like. As I mentioned before, because I'm so passionate about this, in the weeks and months to come, you'll hear from Senate Democrats on our plan to lower other costs as well. Food costs, energy costs, the cost of groceries, health care, child care, and so many other things that Americans pay for every day. The point is this, folks. Republicans had their chance to show Americans they're serious about solving the housing crisis, and they have failed. They have failed. So, we Democrats will offer what the American people desperately need, a way forward. That's what our Opportunity Starts at Home agenda does. It shows the way forward to revive our nation's housing policy. The dream of owning a home might seem like a mirage now, but there's no good reason it cannot turn into a new oasis of future prosperity. Democrats are ready to get to work. We want to deliver on the vision of the right of every family to a decent home. We have the right ideas, we have the right proposals, and once we get the majority, we can start bringing these ideas to life. I welcome your involvement in making this happen. Thank you. Got all these papers all over them. Some people get one of those books. I think I need to turn the pages.
Thank you so much, Senator Schumer, for the really robust agenda. And we're really grateful again for you announcing the start of the Senate Democrats' affordability agenda. And Opportunity at Home really is, Opportunity Starts at Home really does encapsulate it. I guess I'll just start off on a general question, which is, in some of the research we've done polling on housing before, and we found that CAP, in our data, 3 out of 4 Americans, 3 out of every 4 Americans, 75% of Americans think housing affordability is a top concern. You are outlining a broad and robust agenda. I think one of the things that's really surprising for people to hear is how much the current administration's policies are adding to that burden, not just with tariffs, but with the uncertainty created by the attacks on the independence of the Fed, and a strategy that is inflationary instead of addressing lowering costs. So just how do you see, how are Republicans in the Senate on this? How are they reining in the administration anyway? And how do you see driving this contract?
Well, let's start out with this. I mean, on this issue, which is so dominant, when if you go to your local barber shop or local supermarket or local church or religious organization, this is what people talk about. The older people talk about their children not able to buy a home. The children talk about, the kids talk about their inability and how much they want to do it and how it's become so out of reach. And this is not just true in blue areas. This is true across the country. Upstate New York has the third largest rural population in America. I'm up there a lot. As you know, I visit every county every year. And this is what people are talking about. And it amazes me, Neera, how the administration is just in a bubble about this. When Vote just cuts these programs that have helped at least prevent or sharpen the slope of prices going up, of preventing the slope of prices going up. They don't even know what they're doing. They just say, we got to cut. So you'd think, in reference to the second part of your question, that the Republican senators who should be in touch with their people, the Republican Congress members who should be in touch with their people, would say, we got to do something about this. But mum is the word. This Congress, Senate and House, Republican, have just let the executive branch dominate. And when the executive branch is in this bubble and has no understanding of what average Americans are going through on housing and everywhere else, they're supine, they do nothing. Now, it is a good news, that on Elizabeth's, she worked very hard on her bill, on her proposal. And we did get the Republicans to go along. But there wasn't real enthusiasm. You didn't hear many floor speeches about it. And no one's putting pressure on Johnson in the House to move it forward, even though it got such bipartisan support in the Senate.
I'm going to ask one more question, and then we have time for just one or two audience questions. So get your questions ready. You talked a lot about a variety of proposals. And I guess I just want you to talk a little bit about housing supply. Completely agree with you that it's crucial that as we're building more, we have high labor standards, that this is an opportunity to also create jobs, create jobs that are always here because the houses are here. So in terms of housing supply, how do you see that, the centrality of that to addressing the problem?
I think it's important. It's important for us at the federal level to address this issue and do it ourselves. But it's also important in our proposals. As you see, we decided to increase the funding that goes to localities, because not one size fits all. And letting the localities decide the better way to increase housing supply, but giving them some of the resources to do it, makes a great deal of sense. And we all know there's all kinds of zoning and other problems, which I think has broad acceptance now in the Democratic caucus, from the most liberal to the most moderate people, that we have to do something. So, and we've worked with you on this, we propose both carrots and sticks. You get more money if you undo some of these restrictive laws, but you get less money if you don't undo some of these restrictive laws. And we think that'll have a real effect on increasing housing supply in the areas where zoning and other rules have stood in the way.
Great. Audience questions. Now, just on the audience questions, please have a question, make it brief. I will enforce that. And if you can identify yourself, that would be great. There's a question in the back.
Hi, my name is...
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That helps with the mask. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm a commercial building owner in a small town in Washington State who's explored trying to convert buildings to affordable housing while meeting commercial needs in, on the Main Street. but most federal grants and incentives for low-income housing make it very difficult to do mixed use.
Yeah.
In your policy proposals, are there any improvements that you could see for helping small towns maintain their Main Street while implementing low-income housing? Thank you.
Yes, there are, and this is something we're giving a great deal of thought to, not just in small towns, but across the country. When there is when the amount of commercial space that's needed is declining, we need incentives, federal tax incentives and local financial incentives to allow some of that commercial space, whether it be a small storefront in a small town, and we have lots of those in New York, or a larger office building in one of the bigger cities, to convert that. Senator Stabenow had a great proposal before she left on doing that, and Senator Klobuchar and people in the Ag Committee are looking at that right now. So it's a very important thing to do. We also have asked our ARPA to come up with other ideas that will make it easier to move on the path to that kind of conversion.
Great. Other questions? There's a question right here. It's coming.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm one of your classmates. My name's Eddie Eichis. And
Eddie Eichis, we were in law school together.
All right.
Wow, you look a little different.
So do you.
I'm sure we did all do.
Mr. In law school in those days, it was Mr. Eichis.
Right, right. So
Wow.
I worked
Were you from the Bronx or something?
No, I was from Rome. And you met my parents, actually, in
Right.
Rome, New York. You were a
In
hero.
Rome, he was from New York.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about, I worked at HUD. I started as a political aide in the Carter administration. I worked 38 years, 20 of which president of the union. HUD has been completely decimated, especially fair housing and all these other things. Turner, when he was appointed, at least promised that he'd HUD, he'd work, he'd keep the programs. And then when Doge came in, that was the end. And I wanted to know what you can do about bringing HUD back. A lot of people took the fork in the road.
Yeah, if you look at the budget actually we're working on right now, and we'll have the T-HUD budget, transportation and HUD budget, we restore most of the cuts and even go higher than previous years on many of the programs that Doge slashed. When I met our nominee for HUD secretary, then he was nominee, he talked a nice game, but he doesn't seem to have the clout to make those views prevail over the Doge people, over the cut people. But we have worked really hard in the budget and gotten bipartisan support to increase these amounts and undo a lot of the cuts, which are essential. Mr. Righteous.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, on just that point about HUD? I think it's not been a secret that HUD has not received funding it should over many years. I guess as we think to the future, we now live in a time where the president has a lot of authority to change how agencies run. And I think we can think afresh about some of these agencies. I think HUD has not often been considered a place that is really responsible for affordable housing for the whole country. Right. It is seen as something that's organized for some cities, et cetera, but not really responsible for making sure the dream of home ownership, for example, is available to all Americans. How do you see changing that mission? Again, that might be hard with Trump as president, but for the future,
absolutely.
How can Senate Democrats think through that?
Yeah, we think this is a national crisis, as you can see by our agenda.
Yes, absolutely.
We have not focused on one particular area or two or three. And I think the new HUD secretary, in 2029 or who knows, has to have that mission. That was the mission in the 30s. Mm-hmm. And even when the HUD first started, it was much more of the mission. And when it was, 1964 or 65. And it's been lost. And frankly, it's been lost under both Democratic and Republican administrations, where things went a little bit too much. Even people who wanted to do good things, pigeonholed. We got to go back to this, just like feeding hungry children, just like providing health care for everybody is a national mission. Housing has to be as well. It fell off the wagon over the last 30 years. It has to be put back on.
Thank you again. I wanted to, it's a great place to end because we're so excited that with your leadership, with the leadership of Senate Democrats, housing is front and center, will be front and center, and we will actually have action that housing is an area where we know it's an area, with additional supply, with additional federal support, you can deliver lower costs,
Absolutely.
lower rents for people who are in apartments, and lower housing for all Americans. So we are so grateful.
And I'd say one other point here related to just what you said, Neera. You know, there is a lot of focus on home ownership and ability of families to buy homes, but we can't forget there are a lot of renters who can't afford or don't want a home, and we can't forget giving them relief as well.
And that's what's great about the plan. It both lowers rents and lowers costs of houses for people to basically lower that age so that people can have access to the American dream, not in their 40s, but maybe even their 30s and 20s. Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
We're so grateful. Leader
Thank you.
Schumer.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Now I'm going to invite up our senators, Senator Duckworth and Schatz. I'm going to do my introduction as we get the stage ready for them. I want to thank Senator Schumer again for his effort to make life more affordable for working families. We are really excited for the very broad agenda that they will be outlining, that Senate Democrats will be outlining, but really excited that they're starting with housing. And now we're excited to bring up our next two speakers, Senators Brian Schatz and Tammy Duckworth. Senator Schatz helped create the Pro-Housing Federal Program, which rewards jurisdictions that increase the supply of housing, affordable housing, by correcting exclusionary zoning and land use policies. We know there's a lot more work to